If you can relate to the feeling when your crush tells her friends she's being stalked, but you have been following her for a few years, and you've never seen any stalker. So if you can relate to this, just like and subscribe. So with the intro and first two shots of Jägermeister out of the way, we can start the video. Everyone enjoys making fun of North Korea. Because in life, what is more fun than making fun of the poor who believe they are better than everyone, when really they are just a bit more schizo than everyone? So this video is going to be about North Korean tanks, and we're just going to start off with the Chonma-ho. So the first of Kim's Hose. So Chonma-ho 1 and 2, it was introduced in 1976. It is a tank which is heavily based on the T-62, meaning that its armor is most likely a simple 100mm steel plate, and the gun is just most likely a 115mm. For the time when this was created, this was the best anti-tank gun in the world, but in modern day it's nowhere near as good. So, the ammunition, what could it achieve? Well, the 3BK-15 Heat FS could penetrate 460mm of armor at all ranges, because it's heat. Absolutely based Giga Chad around. But the penetration isn't enough for modern day. And the APFSDS 3BM28 could penetrate 380mm at 2 kilometers. For the 60s and 70s, this was pretty good. Modern day, and this gun is used on the majority of North Korean tanks. There is also the Nona night vision device. Night visions are obsolete, as thermals are just a superior sight. However, it's better to at least have something, even if you can see up to 400 to 800 meters. Having something to see is still okay. Lastly, the HMG on the roof. So I can see that it's a 12.7mm and sometimes a 14.5mm. However, it's not remote controlled, therefore it's useless. If you can't remotely control a machine gun that's on the roof, there's no point in having it in the first place. However, I do like the idea of having a 14.5 instead of a 12.7, because, you see, I am a bit weird in the fact that I do like autocannons on tanks, especially the AMX-30. But that can be our dirty little secret, which we won't tell anyone, okay? The Chonma-ho can be easily penetrated by an M72 Law, but those would have no issue in just cracking it open like it's nothing. However, an M72 Law has the maximum range of about 300 meters, so preferably any ATGM would be better. For example, something like a TOW. It can even be the oldest version of the TOW, and it would have no issue. Then there is the Chonma 214, which has an apron, extra side protection, smoke launchers, and it seems to have a laser rangefinder very similar to the one on the T55 AM1, and also extra applique armor on the turret, which increases its protection slightly. The hull, it can still be taken out by an M72 Law and TOW with no issue. Now it's time for the Songun Ho. This one has a 125mm gun. Some people speculate this has an autoloader and some speculate it doesn't. I am of the ones who believe that it doesn't. Also, we can see that still no thermal sights anywhere, and still something that looks like it's heavily inspired on T55 and T62. And it has something very unique to it, and is that it's something that you don't really see on other tanks, and it's an Igla. Well, Western tanks usually use proxy fuse munitions to deal with helis. Soviets prefer to use ATGMs. Here we have an Igla. This is actually smart in my opinion, because you don't have to train some starved people how to take down a heli with a tank, which could be a bit of a difficult thing, but just using an Igla is a bit simpler. Now the Abomination tank. So the tank that kids draw and just add every gun on it. Wait a sec, did Kim's daughter draw this? Or did the Rocket Man himself do it as a kid? And he just said to the designers, Make this or go to the Korean off-brand version of a gulag. Ah, the true meaning of communism. Also, this tank has what looks like meteorological sensors and laser warning receivers, and ATGMs, also a mix of composite and ERA add-on on the armor. So first off, the ATGMs. I think this is actually a good idea. Well, you see, if your main gun is weak and old, and you need to have extra firepower to wreck a modern tank, then an ATGM is good for this, and it also extends the range of your tank. However, what type of ATGM is this? Well, sources will differ on what ATGM this is. Some will say it's a copy of Kornet, and some will say it's just a beefed up Konkurs. Well, it's North Korea, so we don't really know. However, it's enough reason to fear it. We know that North Korea had access to the T-62M with the Brezhnev eyebrows, which had armor almost equivalent to the T-72A, and now the ERA, the off-brand Contact 1, or maybe just based armor. This will protect from M72 Law and AT4, and other handheld weapons, but not a modern ATGM. So, in conclusion, what is this? So, it can defeat helis with no issue. It can have a pretty long range thanks to its ATGM. Meanwhile, South Korea has a tank called the K1. It's basically the M1 Abrams Asian cousin. And we can say that with full confidence that in Iraq, the Abrams did more than a perfect job in Desert Storm against the T-55, Type 59, T-72 Euro, and T-72M. Tech has moved forward in the Abrams a lot, and North Korea not as much. I don't even have to mention the beauty that's called K2 Black Panther. Many will point out that, hey, it's about numbers. Those are tanks which are made to be cheap and, mass-produced in numbers. However, if the technological difference is big enough, like in Iraq, USA had tech which was so much better than Iraqi numbers that it made up for it. Sometimes in warfare, if the tech difference is big enough, numbers don't make an impact anymore. Now the most important part of this video. Why do I call them underrated? Well, with the tech they have access to, with the production they have, and the fact that they are using a failure of a system called communism, they still manage to produce tanks, make new ones, and create solutions for issues. The enemy can use tanks to shoot down helis. Well, so can we, just add an Igla to it. Our guns are old and obsolete. Well, give the tanks ATGMs. The armor is old and obsolete, that an M72 will crack it open. We'll put some extra applique armor. Also, add meteorological sensors, add laser rangefinders, add laser warning receivers. Remember, this is a starving country which is barely kept alive by Chinese funding, so Winnie the Pooh can have a buffer between him and a successful nation backed by the USA, which has a strong military. If you want to know a lot about the South Korean army, Perun has a video and I'll put a link for it in the description. Considering all the things that I said to you, this tank is impressive. But if Russia made this, we would laugh at them, because Russia wants to call themselves the second strongest army in the world, but they are the second strongest army in Ukraine. And Russia is in a different situation, but this is North Korea. The fact that they made this is enough to say, okay, too many people underestimate you and what you can build. Also, the most important part of this tank is that it's a tank. A tank is a tank is a tank. Right? It can take on autocannon fire from IFVs and APCs, while dishing out massive HE rounds to the infantry. And so it sometimes doesn't matter whether if it's a T-55 or a Leopard 2. There are certain situations on the battlefield when it doesn't matter whether you have a T-55 or a Leopard 2. What matters is, how fast you can fire out the HE rounds at the infantry. Therefore, although they are old, although they are obsolete, although they are a joke, they should never be underestimated. They should always be feared. Because a tank is a tank is a tank. Also, if you are still watching the video, please tell me, who would win in a fight? A government trained pigeon drone or a radioactive ninja bat?